Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. Today I want to give you 2 tips on successfully planting peas in the summer for a fall crop, and I'm going to show you how to plant them. Peas are cool weather crops. Their leaves, their stems can actually take a frost, and we don't worry too much about that. However, when the plant is flowering and producing pods, a heavier frost, even a light frost, can damage the flowers in the pods, and it's going to mess up production. So if your pea variety says matures in 75 days, you want to make sure that you have frost-free days or very light frosts for 2 to 3 weeks after they're going to be producing. These are peas that I let sit here over the summer, let them dry out, and this is what we're actually going to be planting. I'll show you how to do that. If you don't give the peas time to produce, they're going to look beautiful, they're going to green up, they're going to start flowering, the frosts roll in, they come pretty regularly. The plants do well, but you're not going to get pods. So I'm in Maryland. Today is August 2nd. My frost comes around the end of October. Heavier frosts don't really come into November. So I have a good 90 days before the frosts roll in that would concern me about damaging my pea pods. So that's the first thing. You want to make sure you have enough time to grow them, and you want to plant these early. You want to plant these really here in Maryland August 1st, August 2nd, the first week of August. You don't want to be waiting till the cooler weather comes in, which seems to make sense. You want these to really get growing and get established so they take off when that September coolness comes and they start flowering and producing, within 75 days. The final tip that's really important is that you have to protect these plants that are sitting in baking in the sun for the August summer. And we're just going to use basic shade cloth. Pea plants have hollow stems, so you need to provide them a trellis so that they can hang on to it. It'll support the growth of the plant. And when the wind comes or when you're picking them, you're not going to, damage the stems. They're going to have some peas go into that space. Just cleared out a cucumber plant that was done producing really, and I'm going to plant right into the space. Peas are able to pull nitrogen from the atmosphere through a symbiotic relationship with the bacteria, and which really means is they don't need a lot of care. There's plenty of nutrients in here. You probably have good garden soil just because you've been taking care of it. Pulled out the cucumbers. We're not going to turn the soil. We're not going to do a whole lot to it. If you have mulch down, you certainly want to move the mulch back. You can push it all back later after the peas sprout. I have compost. If you have compost, always use it. A good inch or 2 going down across the planting area, and then just work it in slightly. We're going to just press the peas into there. That's all you really have to do to set them up. Now, I want to set up this whole area, put the peas down just so I can show you how closely I'm putting them together. The whole key at this point, the whole key up through germination and for the first couple of weeks of August is to keep this area cooler with shade cloth and really keep the space watered. Cooling down the surface temperature will make a big difference. Your peas will sprout, they'll establish great root systems, and they'll be really in shape to take off come September. I'm going to show you 2 ways to plant the peas. This is a single row. We have trellising behind there, and you just set up a row. There were 25 pea seeds that went down about 1 inch or 2 apart, and you want to press them down a good 1 inch. And I would just go down the row. The whole key, again for the summer, really water these in right now, and then you want to water them every 2 or 3 days. You have to maintain the moisture up top. Let those root systems, establish, and when they sprout, that's when you want to probably drop the shade cloth. You have a little bit of time. If you are, and I'm in Maryland, if you're up north, up the East Coast, you might have missed a window a little bit to get your peas in, but I would definitely try some now. If you're where it's warmer, you probably have a couple of weeks to wait before the temperatures come down. But what I recommend is not planting them all on one day. Like do a row, let's say for instance in Maryland, on August 2nd, do another row August 15th, and then you can kind of see timing wise which crop fully produced and did best. So you're going to learn maybe this year by just planting at different times. And I would just work my way down, get them all into the ground, soak them in, and then just keep the watering going. When I see them break the surface, I'm going to drop the shade cloth down. You could do it sooner. I'm going to use a 50% shade cloth, which means it blocks 50% of the sun. I'm going to do that too in this video just so you can see how it's done, but I'm basically just going to hang it here and secure it right down to here, and it's going to be shade. That's it. This is a 100-gallon root pouch. I sell these at my seed shop, linked in the video. I also have a blog, the Rusted Garden Journal, if you want to find out more information about gardening and more information on planting peas in the summer for a fall crop. So 100 gallons, large container. I'm just putting the peas down in a rectangle, and they're about 3 inches to 4 inches apart. You can plant them more closely together if you want, but that's really 35 peas in there. I think I have 7 rows of 5. Same setup. If you have organic granular fertilizer, you could sprinkle some down, mix it in. I have compost, so I put down 2 inches of compost. You don't need a lot of fertilizer. The other thing that's really important, in the spring, sometimes we do pea transplants or we pre-sprout them, and we do that because they're going into very cold ground. With the warm summer soil, warm temperatures, you don't need to pre-sprout the peas, you don't need to do transplants. Direct sowing is really, in my opinion, the only way to go for a summer start of your peas. You want them to establish in the soil. You don't want any stress of transplanting, etc. So, and that saves you time. So you just direct sow. And again, we will go through, press them in about 1 inch deep, and that would set it up. Let me just show you the watering, because it's more important in the container than maybe in the earth beds. And basically you have to water your containers more frequently. This was cleared out a couple weeks ago. So this whole, basically fabric pot of soil is really dried out. So I want to spend extra time really soaking this in. I'm using some tomato cages for the trellising. They work really, really well. And I'm going to just lay the shade cloth over this. Now, if your temperatures are in the 80s, you can probably just let the peas germinate. I like if they germinate from the earth into the sun, because they kind of toughen up. They get the UV rays from the sun for a couple of days, and the peas get a sense that they have plenty of sunlight. However, if the temperatures outdoors are in the 90s for a prolonged period, sometimes the heat can inhibit germination for some seeds. So I would use the shade cloth a little bit earlier. The soaking, I'm not going to show you the full probably 5 minutes that I do in here, but you want to hold it in place, water the bed really well, both beds, but especially containers, for a good 20 or 30 seconds in each kind of quadrant. Let's pretend we're doing 20, 30 seconds in each quadrant, and then let the water settle, and then go through and you do it again. You really want the moisture to be in the container, and water more frequently than you think. You can't really cause problems if you're watering plants in earth beds or in containers that have drainage. So peas are watered in well. Let me show you some examples of shade cloth just to get you started. This is a 50% shade cloth that I'm using right now to keep my tomatoes cool, and it lets in 50% of the sun, so 50 shade, 50 sun. Really helps cool the tomato plants down so they keep producing in our hot Maryland summers. So 50% shade cloth is fine for like Maryland, up north where it's cooler. 70% is fine if you're like Maryland, down south or where it gets warmer. So I have both in my garden. Here's the 70%. The setup's pretty simple. It's 9 a.m. The morning sun is getting in there. You don't worry about that because it's kind of cool and tame. Western, southern sun comes behind me. It will beat down in this area. Sun beating down will heat this space up, the soil, a couple 2 inches where the seeds are, to 100, 110 degrees. And it's really going to mess with good growth, root development, and all that. So you want to use the shade cloth. Shade cloth comes in all kinds of shapes and sizes. You can get 50%. This is 70%. Get whatever kind of fits your space. If you want to go to my Amazon shop, in the description, I link to different shade cloths, and that'll give you some ideas of what you can buy. Couple bamboo posts right here. Because it's the morning, you can come out and you can let the peas get some of that cooler sun. When it, gets to be about 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, you could pull the shade cloth up over the posts. That's going to keep the soil cooler. The peas are going to germinate quickly. They're going to grow fast because it's warm, but you're keeping it nice and cool down here where the plant's thinking they're in about 80 degrees, and they're just going to grow beautifully. I use clothespins to keep the shade cloth in place. And again, you know, I'll just lift this up, drop it over, and I will have what I need. Another strategy you can use, and maybe you have a part of your garden that has a tree, and because it warmed, it has leaves, and it's casting shade into some of your garden. When the fall approaches, the leaves are going to fall. It's going to expose the area to more light, and you can plant your cool weather crops that way too. So I'm going to be putting more peas behind these cages. I could throw that same shade cloth right over the cages. It will keep everything cooler. So just remember that you want to plant your peas as soon as possible, because you don't want to, you know, just think, oh, they can handle a frost, because the flowers and pods can't really handle consecutive frosts. You want to have a good 3 weeks after the maturity date of that variety you're growing, so that you have plenty of time to harvest your peas. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com, and check out my blog, The Rusted Garden Journal. I'll have an article on growing peas. Also have an article up there right now on composting. If you want to start making compost, that would be wonderful. Good luck with the peas. Get them started now. Plant some more in like 2 weeks, and even again in 3 or 4 weeks. This way you can see what's the best time to start growing fall peas in your summer garden in your specific zone. Thanks so much for watching.